you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O's, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O's, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Moore
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Murphy, with my co-host, Pierre McGuire, right here. And we are going to continue our march through the Pacific Division and preview two more teams today, and that will be the Vegas Golden Knights and the Los Angeles Kings. And shortly, we will be joined by Vegas Golden Knights head coach Bruce Cassidy. Really looking forward to that. Obviously got to work with Bruce a lot during his time in Boston. So looking forward to catching up with him again here. But before we get into that, Pierre, we'll get your initial thought on each team, and then we'll delve deeper into them with Bruce and then with you and me later. On the Vegas Golden Knights, just your impression from last year and just heading into this season right now.
It's tough to repeat, and they're coming off a Stanley Cup winning year. Lots of attention. They dealt with a lot of injuries last year. People forget that. My concern, one of them, and we'll talk to the coach about that, Mark Stone's a really important player there. He's a heart and soul guy. He's a leader. He matters a lot around the room. He matters a lot on the ice. His last 3 years, here are his game totals: 56, 43, 37. Here are his goal totals: 16, 17, 9. You get concerned when a player starts breaking down, and there's a lot of years of service there for an important player. That's kind of the bad news situation for them. The good news for them is their identity is back. They're big, they're mobile, they're hugely skilled on defense. Think about this: Noah Hannafin, Alex Pietrangelo, Braden McNabb, Shea Theodore, Nick Hague, and Zach Whitecloud.
Wow.
That I'm just telling you.
That could be the best defense in the league.
Top three probably in the whole league.
Yep.
So they got defense. They've got an elite Stanley Cup winning coach.
Mm-hmm.
They've got, depth down the middle with Eichel, Hurdle, and Carlson, and then Nick Roy, your fourth center. That might be one of the best fourth centermen in the league. So, you start looking at the rest of the lineup. So I talk about Stone as a concern, Jimmy. My other concern is Riley Smith is no longer there. He wasn't there last year. Mm-hmm. And Jonathan Marchessault won't be there this year. So Riley Smith's in New York after being traded to Pittsburgh, and Jonathan Marchessault is in Nashville.
Yes.
Restricted free. So you lose those two guys. I know it's in 2 years, over the course of 2 years. Do they have enough to overcome those losses offensively? That's their identity is there. The coaching is there. The size is there. There's a lot there. There's a lot there, Jimmy.
Yeah, and as you say, talking about their defense there, Pierre, you like to call it the Redwood Forest because those are some big trees to go around there, huh?
Well, it's hard to swing. It's hard to swing with the big trees.
Yeah.
You got big trees there. When St. Louis won the Cup, now Bruce was coaching in Boston when St. Louis beat him in Game 7.
Yep.
Here's what I'll tell you, and he'll tell you the same thing.
Yeah.
It was almost impossible to get to the front of the net on the Blues that year.
Yeah.
It was almost impossible. And Alex Pietrangelo was a captain of that team. But, you look at the size of their defense, it was ridiculous, and it was good. And so Vegas, Bruce goes to Vegas, and they win, and they got big D. And they've made their D better because they've added Noah Hannafin.
Yep. I remember Pierre, when he went to Vegas, when he took that job, the first thought in my head, and I think I had the conversation with you right away, was he has the defense that beat him in the Stanley Cup final, just like you said. And he has the defense he always wanted in Boston. He now has that blue line. That's the type of guys that he always seemed to try to push towards for Don Sweeney to get. Sometimes they could, sometimes they couldn't. But he had it in Vegas, and they succeeded in his first year. Now, Pierre, we go back to last year, too. And I was just looking at it before we came on here. And look, I'm sure Bruce isn't going to use this as an excuse, but we can at least point it out as media. They led the league by a landslide in man games lost, Pierre, last year.
That's what we talked about off the top here, 100%.
It's just you look at the next team. So they were 190. What do we got here? Yeah, 119. And then the next team in was 82. That was Chicago. So you look at that, Pierre. That's to be able to do what they did, to still stay in the mix. I get it. And on top of that, all those points you made about being a Stanley Cup champion, having to repeat, you're going in every game where it's the biggest game on the calendar for each team. You are the target. And not that that's going to go away this year, even though they might have had a bad year, gone backwards a bit last year. They'll still be there because they're still known as a contender, and so they have that target on their back. So I'm excited though for this team. I think Bruce is the coach to kind of bring them back into it and get them to where they need to be. But I'm with you. I think the offense is a question. The other thing I look at is the goaltending, and I think that they still have solid goaltending, but I don't know about losing Logan Thompson. That was a tough.
They're hoping Ilya Samsonov can learn a lot from Sean Burke, who's their goalie coach. Yeah, and Sean did a fantastic job with Logan Thompson. He did a really good job with Aiden Hill.
Yep,
really did. So Sean did. Sean's one of my own players. I want people to understand. So I'm always biased towards some of my old players. It's hard not to be. But he did a tremendous job with Aiden Hill. He did a really, really good job with him.
Yeah. All right. Quickly, let's go over to the Kings, and then we'll get back into the Knights when we bring on Butch here in a bit. And just by the way, we have an update. He says they're coming on as soon as possible. They're in a meeting right now, but they will be on as soon as possible.
We're good. Just the fact that they take the time to respond is.
And I gotta thank the Kings, especially Nate Ewell, who I've known for a while.
Don't say the Kings. You want to the Knights.
The Vegas. I mean, I got to thank the Knights, and I got to thank Nate Ewell, who I've known him since going back to his days with U.S. College Hockey and the Capitals, and he's always been one of the best PR guys in the league. And I messaged him late last night. He got in touch with me this morning, and he said, "Murph, we're going to do our best to make it happen. Stand by," and he did, and he got right back to me. So good for them. They do a great job here. The Vegas Golden Knights, ever since they came into the league, dealing with the media, accommodating, setting up interviews. They do amazing work within their community. So bravo to them for all that.
I'll tell you how great they are. When they came into the league, the NHL awards were in Vegas. They did not have the draft there, but they had the expansion draft there. Mm-hmm. And Big E, Eric Tosi, called me up and he said, "Hey, George McPhee asked me to call you, and he was wondering if you would host our draft party." And I was like, "Wow, of course I would host your draft party. It would be my honor." And I just remember the players that they got. I remember we talked about this yesterday, and I said, George just held everybody's feet to the fire. It was unbelievable what he was able to get out of all these teams. Yeah. And then, at the end, you have the face of the franchise, and you're looking at, arguably one of the top goalies in the last 25 years in the league is Marc-Andre Fleury. And that's how you start your expansion team with a goalie like Marc-Andre. It's unbelievable.
Amazing. So we will get back to that in a bit. A little LA Kings here. And before we discuss the current team and what happened last year, Pierre, I want to discuss what happened 23 years ago today quickly and just pay respect to two former Kings staff members, Garnet Ace Bailey and Mark Babers, who were scouts, who were on the United Flight 175 that went into the World Trade Center 23 years ago. I can't believe it's that long. I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday. And, as I was telling you, Pierre, on the phone earlier today, ironically, that was my first day on the Bruins beat. That was supposed to be my first practice I'd cover. They were opening up training camp that day on September 11th, 2001. At the time, I was also working a temp job, and I got to that office there, and then I was going to take off at noon and head up to Wilmington, Mass, where the Bruins practice at Restuccia Arena then. And I started to unravel there in a sort of makeshift cafeteria they had. And, you're just thinking, because you knew everyone was going to know somebody, right? And you're trying to think of all the people that might be connected. And it didn't even dawn on me that Ace and Mark would be flying out probably that day or around that time to go out to, LA to start a training camp there. And of course, we had Bruce Boudreau on last year. Remember, he told us he was supposed to be on that flight. And it's, no matter how many years ago it is, it still stings so much. And, I think of them, and I don't know how much you knew of Ace Bailey, Pierre, but this guy would light up a room the second he walked into it. And he always had time for everybody. He always made people crack up. I just remember interviewing Wayne Gretzky a couple years later on the anniversary of September 11th. And, he just said, man, that guy, no matter how bad things were, we could be losing 8-0. And Ace is going to make us laugh, and he's going to cheer us up and get our spirits up. So I just want to send, our love and respect to all who were affected by that and continue to be affected by that tragic tape here.
I knew Ace really well. I traveled with him a lot. I worked a lot of summer times with him down at the old Quincy Pro-Am League. We used to hang out there together.
Oh, yeah.
And so we had a lot from then. There was the Hingham Pro-Am League as well back in the day. I had both Bavis brothers, Mike and Mark Bavis, at the Europa Cup. They were both superstar players at Catholic Memorial, and they both went to Boston University. So I knew the brothers well back in the day. Heartbreaking when that happened. It's not just them. It's every family that had people that were unfortunately involved. I had two former players, two kids from St. Lawrence that I had the privilege of coaching that worked together. And they leapt from a window together, teammates. So yeah, hard, really hard. I had a former teammate, Michael Simon, that passed away as well in that whole situation. So that's a really hard memory. 9/11 is bad. It's bad for everybody.
And it's so strange.
It's close to home. It's close to home. It
does, and I woke up today, and you probably remember, Pierre. It was just such a beauwe blue sky day, just like today. And I was like, wow, it just brought me back to it.
Jimmy, you know what happened? I'll tell you what happened. We were up at our house in Canada. The children, Justine was just born. Ryan wasn't even born yet.
That's right.
And so we had a little carriage that I could run with and push Justine. We live in the woods there. Mm-hmm. So we had these trails, and I was pushing her, and I went for about an hour run. I was supposed to fly to New York later that day to give a speech at a golf tournament. And I got back in the house, and my wife, she never watches TV in the morning. And the baby was really young, small. So I took her out of the carriage, and I brought her in the house, and Melanie's just staring at the TV. And as I walked in the room, I saw the second plane fly into the World Trade Center on the TV. And she goes, Pierre, there's been a terrorist attack in New York. We didn't know about, what was going to happen at the Pentagon or what was going to happen in Western Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And so I was mortified, because if you worked in, hockey as long as I had, you knew people in New York, you knew people in Boston, you knew people in Washington, you knew a lot of people. So when I saw that, I was mortified. Anyways, we couldn't do anything. I mean, the league shut down for how long, Jimmy? I mean,
at least
the St. Louis Blues were up in Alaska. I was talking to the late Jimmy Roberts and Joel Quinn. They were up in Alaska.
Yeah. Yep. I remember it. And I never forget, too. I want to bring this up, too. It always amazed me and touched me what the people in Gander, Newfoundland did. Remember that, Pierre, when all those planes had nowhere to go? So they took them in and they put them up in their houses and fed them. And
the Newfoundlanders are amazing people. People in Newfoundland and Labrador, any maritimer, they're special people. We've had so many of them as guests on the eye test, including our real good friend Terry Ryan. But yeah, no, they're special. And that whole good of you to bring that up, Jimmy. Gander's a special community. It definitely is.
Yep.
I've been more than once, Jimmy, and it's a special place.
I got to get up there. It's on my bucket list to make it to Newfoundland. I know Terry Ryan has a seat waiting for me in some Irish pub there. But, Pierre, I do remember, though, quickly, and we'll move on and back into hockey. But just, the one thing I think we all remember, though, in the aftermath of that was just the unity, the way we all came together. And we don't see that now, and if we could somehow, I hate that it has to take a tragedy like that to produce that. So, just remember that. Remember how we once were, and maybe someday we can find our way to be that way again.
That's well said. I don't need to add anything more to that. That's well said.
All right, let's move on though to those Kings, and this is a team, as we said yesterday. I think we could consider them in the mystery category of the 2024-2025 season. We just kind of don't know which way they're going, who they are, new coach, some young players that are ready to come on. And up, as I'm saying this, though, I do see that Bruce is ready to go. So we will get back to that after we talk to Vegas Golden Knights head coach Bruce Cassidy. And before he joins us, I want to play this one clip because I'm sure this clip never gets old for Bruce Cassidy. So let's go to that right now.
20 seconds remaining. The Golden Knights start to celebrate on their bench. the silver trophy to the Golden Knights.
And that was a wonderful moment there, obviously, for Bruce Cassidy and the entire Vegas Golden Knights organization. Bruce is joining us right now. Butch, how you doing, my friend? Long time no see.
Hi, Jimmy. Hi, Pierre. It has been a long time. What have you guys been up to? Podcast, obviously. Yeah.
We're doing a podcast now together.
Good to see you, Coach.
How are you, Pierre? You
I'm
been
good.
back in Ottawa at all? Or
I've been back to Ottawa a couple times. I was in Tremblant for a month in August, so that was good. Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
Nice.
How was your summer, Bruce?
Too long, to be honest with you. I'm in Cape Cod, Mass, so I'm down by the beach and golfing, and so it's great down there. It was just a little longer than I would have liked.
Right. A lot different than what you were saying this time last year, huh? After that just happened?
Yeah, I mean, last summer was too short, obviously, but for all the right reasons. And but that's the league, you know. You get back on our horse this year and see what we can do about it.
We were just saying, when you go into a season as a Stanley Cup champion, obviously you've got a big target on your back, and every game for your opponent is the biggest game for them. And people can talk about it all they want, right? But I imagine until you experience it, Coach, you don't really fathom what it really is about. What was that like just as the season went on, understanding that?
Well, it was the first crack at it for me, but I was fortunate. John Stevens had been through it twice in LA. So when we were preparing, our training camp and whatnot, he was a great guy to lean on. Petrangelo had been through it. Alec Martinez been through it. Barbashev, Stevenson. So we had lots of guys in the room that had experienced it. So we knew that it would be a difficult season at some point. That's what they all said. It was one of their longer seasons. The interesting part is we had a good start, and that's when everyone feels like you're going to struggle. But we actually, I think, won our first 10 or 11 games. It was after that where the problems set in for us, where we were a measuring stick, and for probably a number of different reasons, it didn't go as well as we'd liked from then. Even though we got into the playoffs, eventually found our footing, there was a stretch in the middle of the year there where I think that's the part of the season that had caught up to us.
Mm-hmm. And what about the injuries too? I mean, you guys I know you don't want to make excuses, but you led.
No, we've had them for a few years now. So we overcame them the year before. We had a bunch of them, especially in goal, and we found a way. So no, I'm not going to use them for excuses, but you can't expect when your top guys, and this is the other thing about injuries, that sometimes, and I'm not being disrespectful, but the injuries to our lineup were a lot of the high end of our salary cap guys too, right? These are guys that are hard to replace, that are difference makers, bring a lot of different elements. So, losing Jack and Stoney and Petro and Theodore, Hill, these are all the guys that we rely on a little more than others. So it did catch up to us. But I mean, Colorado's been through it. Other teams have been through it. You just have to find a way. And the interesting thing was we did get healthy at the end, going into the playoffs. And I, as a coach, the only thing we would have hoped for was a little more time to see them all together, back on the ice together, because we get Dallas in the first round, real good team playing well. That would have been the only, in a perfect world, if we could have had a little more time to sort of sort through where the hurdle fits best and get Petro back up to speed, et cetera, Hill more starts, and those different type of things.
You talked about the injuries, Coach. What about Mark Stone? If you look at the last 3 years, he's never played more than 56 games in any one season. How is his health this offseason? Are you expecting to play a little bit more than that?
Well, he looks great right now. And the 2 previous years, it was back surgeries. So those, I think he knew, okay, there's a rehab for it. This is the template. Last year, it was the spleen injury, which there's a lot of unknowns there. And I think he'd tell you himself that he was a little nervous coming back from that one, just because of the severity of it. So an internal injury. He feels great now. He's had a summer to sort of get his body back to where he feels it needs to be to play an 80-game season. And obviously, when you have 3 years like that, there's a bit of luck involved after a while. Like, let's hope that kind of he's had his share of tough breaks and may have a nick here or there along the way where you miss a few games, but not the big chunks he's missed recently.
Coach, you brought some new guys in there last year with Thomas Hertl, Noah Hannafin. Obviously, when guys come in, it takes a period to adjust. Now that they're going to be able to, come back from the summer, get acquainted, go through a training camp with you, go through a preseason, how much more do you think you're going to see the true Noah Hannafin and the true Thomas Hertl that you acquired?
Yeah, and I think Hanny had a little easier time of it because he was healthy when he just came over from Calgary and right into the lineup, played a lot. We'd had a few holes in our back end then through injury, so he got to go right in. We relied on him a lot. He played great for us. I mean, we ended up re-signing him, and it's a great deal for us to fill a hole in the back end. And Hertl comes in, but he'd been on a knee surgery, so he hadn't played for a while, and he hadn't played meaningful games when he did come back in for a while. So I think with Thomas, you'll see a different player this year coming out of training camp. He's had a full summer to rehab. He has a better idea of what the team looks like. He was here. So he's the guy that I would expect to be like a really good acquisition for us that, maybe didn't get acclimated as quick as Hannafin did. So, he plays in the middle of the ice. He plays in all situations. He's going to be a net front catalyst for us in the power play, an area we need improvement on. We're going to rely on him for leadership. Stevenson went out the door. Marchessault went out the door. Martinez went out the door. So some guys that have been in the league, we want to replace that element. And he's a guy that can certainly bring that.
That's what I was just going to ask you about. All the players, you go back to your Stanley Cup team. Riley Smith moved on. Jonathan Marchessault's moved on. Chandler Stevenson's moved on. How much are you expecting from younger guys? Like, I know Victor Olson's game tremendously well. You probably know that just as well because of being in Boston. He was in Buffalo. But are you expecting him to be able to be a top 6 guy, Bruce?
Well, we're in the salary cap world, right? You need some value players, and he's a guy we got our eye on for that. And I think that was a good signing for us for a couple of reasons too, Pierre, is the relationship with Jack Eichel, right? He had some of his best years in Buffalo playing with Jack. He's got the one-timer shot on the elbow as a left shot that we've missed on the power play. So he's going to get a chance to go into the lineup in a good, in a comfort zone. He's going to play with a centerman he knows, and he's going to play a position on the power play where he's excelled in the past. So we think he'll be a good add. Obviously, he didn't have the year he had last year, but we're not going to judge him on 1 year of a guy that's played 6 years in the league. So there's some things we'll ask of him that may or may not have been asked of him in Buffalo to help us win hockey games. And hopefully he'll respond well there. But yes, I believe he could be a top 6, but we don't expect him to be a driver of the line, but complement Jack. Barbashev goes to the net. People said that about Barbie, right? When he was here, was he a top 6? And he did very well with Marchessault. So we're going to ask the same of Olsen and see where it goes. And if it doesn't go, we have Stone that's played with Eichel. Now you're loading up a little bit. So we'd like to balance our line. So that's how it's going to be for Victor early on. And it's kind of like, okay, here's what, we're going to give you. And this is what we need in return away from the puck, how we're going to check and be a team that's hard to play against. And that's where the coaching part will come in. And hopefully we can find some common ground there.
Jimmy, before you go, I just want to pat the coach on the back, okay? Because you heard all that stuff that he was saying. Those aren't empty words. That's real. That's film room. That's studying. That's watching games. He's understanding Eichel and Olsen, connection, power play, one-timer, elite, did it in the American League, did it in the NHL. But he just brought up a name that nobody even talks about, Ivan Barbashev.
Oh, yeah.
In 2019, when St. Louis beat the Boston Bruins in Game 7 in Boston, Ivan Barbashev played on the 4th line for the St. Louis Blues.
I was there. I remember it well.
So, Jimmy, I just want
to block that out.
He was there. He gets it. So when they have a meeting with the management, can this guy help you or not? Oh, yeah, he can. And this is why. And that's why this is why coach has been so good for so long. Like, those details matter, Jimmy, and not enough people talk about that. Good job, Bruce. Thanks.
Yeah, well, thanks, Pierre. And I thought he fit in very well with St. Louis. Chief had him in a great role. And we saw something in him that maybe, and I think he got a little bit of an opportunity a couple of years later in St. Louis to move up in the lineup. And he did a few things. So that our scouts said, listen, he's going to bring the physicality, the details, and the energy, but maybe there's a little something more there if he plays with the right centerman. And that's what he did for us in the playoff run. He did it last year. And again, not a guy that needs to drive the line by any means offensively, but get to the inside, score the dirty goals, get pucks off the wall for Jack. And those are things he's done really well for him.
Hey, Jimmy, eye test player. He's an eye
Yes,
test.
he is. Yes, he is. You know, before you came on, Bruce, Pierre and I were just discussing the defense you have, and just, you know, Pierre likes to call it a redwood forest because you just got some big trees back there. But I was thinking, I remember when you got the job in Vegas, and I think it might have been Pierre that I called up and said, right, I go, Bruce finally has a defense he wanted, that he needs. And I'm just wondering if you can remember back when you took that job, how excited you were to have a defense constructed like that can be offensive, but also is so tough to get through.
Well, a little bit of it's just experience in Boston trying to beat Tampa, right? I mean, year after year, right? We came up a little bit short, and again, you know, especially against, you know, we'll put St. Louis in that category. It was one series, but Tampa we saw more often, and it just felt like, you know, those are the teams that win in the end. If you can produce or put players in the back end like that, easier said than done. I know I'm not, you know, I'm sure every GM in the league would love to have these big mobile, skilled, puck moving, hard to play against guys, right? But
yeah,
I think Tampa did a good job when we were playing against them, and I think coming here, I recognized it right away. Our smallest guy was probably Shea Theodore, and he was still 6'2", and he's 205 pounds. So, and he's, you know, more of a puck mover, but, you know, big Braid McNabb, so underrated. Nick Hagan, White Cloud, two really young players with lots of room to grow. We knew what Petro could do. So, you know, we were very fortunate. And then you add a Hannafin in the mix now, who's a 6'3", real mobile guy. You know, Martinez was here. And even though he might not have been as tall as those guys, he was a guy that plugged the inside. He made it hard to get to the net. He blocked shots, good sticks. So it was really hard for teams to get inside on us. So we had the right goalie for the situation to be a good, solid positional goaltender, make the key saves when you need them, but not a guy that had to steal games every night. And I think it was a big reason for our success. And we have those guys returning. We've got some turnover up front, so we'll have to find some goals, replace Marchessault and Stevenson. We're aware of that. We just talked about one guy that could do it. Holtz is another, who's a young guy that we're hoping with a little more rope can do that. But our Dias that's our calling card, that's our identity, and we know that, and they have to be solid for us to win. And we've told them that consistently. They accept that challenge, and it won't be any different this year.
Pierre?
I'm letting the coach go. He's been too valuable. He's got work to do. You got to know there's a time zone.
Yeah.
Rookie camp out there. Look at the guy jumping out the seat. He's ready to go.
Yeah, we started today, our opening meeting.
I know you did. I can tell.
Appreciate you taking the time, Butch. Hey, listen, my friend, always a pleasure to get you on, and we miss you here in Boston, all right?
Yeah, I miss you guys. Anyway, take care. Good to hear from you. Thanks for having me on, and we'll catch up soon.
Thanks,
Sounds
Bruce.
good. That's head coach Bruce Cassidy of Vegas Golden Knights join us here on the eye test. Pierre, I loved covering him. I know he can be a very hard coach and be tough on his players. But he was like that with us. I mean, he'd tell you if he thought you were wrong, but he'd tell you when he thought you're right. And he loves to talk hockey. He's just one of those guys, you know, you'd love to be sitting next to in a pub and just shooting the breeze, talking hockey. That's what it was like every day going to practice to cover Coach Cassidy.
He's a really good hockey man. You know, he was a first-round pick of Chicago. People forget that. He was a really good special Ottawa 67, you know, just a phenomenal player in junior. And he shredded his knee, and he was never really able to get to that level at the NHL level. But he was an outstanding, I'm telling you, Jimmy, he was a really talented offensive player. He really was. You know, the biggest thing that I've seen him do as a coach, when he was in Washington, it didn't go well. Because like a lot of young coaches, and I can say it because I was one of them, sometimes you get too emotional, you get upset, and you make things personal. Mm-hmm. And he did that in Washington. I'll be the first person to tell you that. And then he learned. He got another opportunity to go, but he went to the American League. He went to Providence. And he learned. He learned how to run his own team without the spotlight. He learned how to be better. You know who was like that? Alain Vigneault.
Yep.
Alain Vigneault, same thing in Montreal. And I wish, you know, I think about it now. When I was a younger coach, that's what you needed to do. You needed to take that one step back to take 3 steps forward. And Bruce was able to do that. And what it says a lot about him, and I think it's important for everybody to know this, when he got fired in Washington, he got fired by George McPhee.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When he got hired in Vegas, he got hired by George McPhee.
Exactly.
So George allowed him to go somewhere else,
Bro.
learn, grow, because he knew he was a good coach. And boom, he goes to Vegas and he wins the Stanley Cup for George.
Pierre, you know something I remember him talking to me about? I think it was a year he won the Jack Adams. And I had him on a podcast I was doing, and he going back to the Washington days. I totally echo what you say. He said that one of the things he found very difficult was when he went in that locker room, and there's a guy like Jaromir Jagr there, and some other big stars at the time, and he didn't know how to handle himself. And he said, I don't know if these guys are going to take me seriously because of their stature in the league and in this dressing room versus me coming in as a rook. And I think at times I tried to lay the law down too much to establish respect and say, look, I can't be pushed around, but it backfired on me. And he said, that's something I always took with me. And he said he applied it when he finally got back into the A and then eventually to the Boston Bruins. So that struck me the way, he kept that with him and learned from it.
I can tell you right now, I learned from that.
You've experienced it, right?
100%, because I lived it. And
Yeah.
so it's a big – so the one thing I'd say for anybody that, they fast track these young coaches because a lot of times they work cheaper too than the older guys. And the one thing I think where a lot of the younger coaches make mistakes, they hire their buddies who they've communicated with. They're not hiring enough veteran leadership that can take them aside without making it personal. Say, you were too strong there. You got to back off this guy.
Yeah.
Because you're going to lose the room. And because if you lose this guy, you will lose the room.
Yep.
Or you can say, you're not hard enough on this guy today. And this is why I'm telling you got to do that, because player A, B, and C are laughing. So we got to get the attention of A, B, and C. And the only way you're going to do that is to tell D to wake up.
Yeah.
And you got to do it in a team environment. So there's lots of different ways. But when you're a young guy doing it, if you don't have a veteran guy around you who's really been through it, it's hard to do. And I Jimmy, you know what? One of our special friends is Scotty Bowman, for you and I. And we talk a lot. We talked again today for a long time. And we were kind of talking about that. Yeah. We didn't talk about Bruce. We didn't talk about me. We were talking about different things in the league.
In coaching, yeah.
And in coaching. And, you look at the turnover, almost 16 coaches in a year and a bit. That's a lot.
Yeah.
There are a lot of guys getting opportunities that they better have good staffs around them.
Yep. I'm with you. Totally agree, Pierre. Well, another guy that now has got an opportunity, he started as the interim and now he's been re-upped as the head coach, is Jim Hiller in LA. Pierre, you know more about him than me, so I'm going to let you take the lead and kind of describe what probably made the Kings want him to be the bench boss.
Well, Jimmy's a good communicator, number one. Number two, he's got some street cred because he's been around the league a long time. He's a really good college player at Northern Michigan. He was an adequate pro player. I think lack of speed was a problem for him when he played. But he's learned a lot, whether he's working for Mike Babcock in Detroit or Toronto. He learned a lot from Lou Lamoriello being on the island. He learned a lot from different people. He worked for Todd McClellan, who's a tremendous coach, by the way, in LA. He hired DJ Smith, who he worked with in Toronto, who I can tell you right now, DJ's a really good hockey coach. I worked with DJ for 11 months. He's a really, really good hockey coach. I'm just telling you right now. And so DJ will help him a lot. But what they did in the offseason was really smart. Newell Brown became available. And that name might not resonate with a lot of people because Newell's been more of an assistant in the NHL than he's been a head coach. But Newell was an assistant in 2007 when Anaheim won the Cup. Newell's been around a long time. He was a really good player at Michigan State. He was a real good coach in the American Hockey League in Adirondack. That it goes to what I was talking about before. So Jimmy and DJ realized, you know what? Newell Brown's been around a long time. He's 62 years old. We're going to bring him in, and he's going to be on our staff in this environment. And so it's going to stabilize everything. It speaks to what we're doing. So I'm really proud of Jimmy and DJ for doing that. They also hired a real good goalie coach in Mike Buckley, who was there in Pittsburgh when they won the Cup in 16 and 17. So, they've done some good things. Here's my concern about their team. you talked about, and so did the coach, Vegas has an identity.
Mhm.
They have an identity. I don't know what LA's identity is.
I don't either.
I will say this, when I look at their lineup, they're going to be fast. They're going to have
Yep.
good depth at center. Their first three centers are Kopitar, Byfield, and Deneau. Those are three really competent
Yep.
centers. Really competent. But here's the other thing. You do the deep dive on the team, and that's why I brought up the identity. It's not just for this year. It's for what happened before.
Mhm.
This team made the playoffs the last 3 years, but they've lost in the first round the last 3 years.
Yep.
Won the cup in 2014. Do you know how many times they've won a playoff round since 2014? Correct.
0.
0.
I know. And I feel like, what's the word I want to say? Okay, I guess it'd be 3 words: lost in transition. I feel like since those cup years, this has been a team that didn't know whether they were rebuilding or trying to continue and stretch out the run they had, and sort of just got somewhere in the middle. And it's like they're just in this quicksand, Pierre, where they can't climb out of that mediocrity stage. I think they do have some players that could help them do that. And I agree with you on the speed. The one player that I can't figure out, and obviously they can't either because he's unsigned right now, but I want to get your take on him, is Kilyev. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name right.
Kaliev.
Excuse me. And, he's an RFA. He's unsigned. He's been mired in trade rumors for so long. He's got size. He's got potential, but he just can't seem to get it together. If he gets it together, what are the Kings getting in that player?
He can be a 20 to 35 goal guy. He can shoot the puck.
He's that
He's got
skilled.
an elite shot.
Yeah.
Elite shot. And he's strong. He's not soft. He's a strong guy. I look at it. I think I watched Laferriere when he was a kid, when he was playing at the Kent School. I had his father and his uncle at the Europa Cup in Boston when I was a young coach. So I see this kid playing at Harvard against my son, and I'm going, I know that kid really well. So I think he's going to have a big year. I think they're going to play him as a top 6 role. Kempe is an elite skater. Fiala's a skater, a playmaker, and a finisher. Getting Warren Foegele adds speed, size, and grit. So, you look at Tanner Jeannot, you look at Trevor Moore. They've got some pieces on the wings that are pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I think if Tanner Jeannot is playing on your third line in LA and he's playing with, let's say, Phil Deneau and Trevor Moore, let's just say that's their line. That could be a really, really top-end third line.
Yep.
So I see lots of parts there. They're just not real deep. And so I worry about, and again, this is not a knock on anybody, but, you look at Jeff Carter from the Cup years. Mm-hmm. Carter went away. Richards went away. Dustin Brown went away. Robin Regier went away. Alec Martinez went away. Jonathan Quick went away. You start looking at, that's a lot of guys leaving almost at the same time. And it's been tough for them. It's been really hard. And so I don't think it's the management so much as them having a hard time keeping everything together.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Well, I think, like I said, this is a team that could go either way. I don't have enough of a feel on them to give you any prediction about where they'll be, but I think they're going to be in the mix for a spot in the playoffs. Just don't know if they'll get in this time. We'll see. One last thing on them, though, Pierre. The one thing that could, in my opinion, prevent them from getting there is I'm not sold on this goaltending at all.
Well, no. So Darcy Kemper, David Riddick, and Phoenix Copley. Copley's coming off an injury. That's a big problem for them. Kemper's a Stanley Cup winner, so you can't take that away from him. But it didn't work out in Washington when he left Colorado, and that's why he's in, obviously, LA now. David Riddick, I think, is what he is. He's this really competent team player that will take shots till the cows come home in practice. But I don't think he can start 40 games for you. Yeah. So they're kind of disjointed, and this is not a knock on anybody. Jonathan Quick got hurt. He got hurt a lot, and so I get why Jonathan's not there anymore. I totally get it.
It was time to move on.
It was time to move on, but people take shots at LA all the time. Jonathan was hurt a lot. You know, Jimmy, I never told you this story, but I'll tell it to you quick. when they played in 2012 against New Jersey in the Stanley Cup final, I did a sit-down interview with Jonathan Quick. And I said, Jonathan, I watched you play at Avon Old Farm, saw you play at UMass, saw you even play for the Reading Royals in the East Coast Hockey League. Saw you play in a lot of places. The one thing I really always admired about you, you were a hard worker and you were coachable.
He's a warrior.
Those are two great characteristics.
Yeah.
And I said, people like to copy Dominic Hasek. People try to copy Marty Brodeur. People try to copy Patrick Waugh. People try to copy Tommy Barrasso. People try to copy Eddie Belfour. Do you think people will try to copy Jonathan Quick? And his answer was, it was unbelievable. I've never heard a player so open.
No.
He said, they can try all they want. They're going to end up in the emergency room because I get hurt a lot. That's what he said.
Basically, he's saying, I play like I'm an elastic band, but I'm not.
And I get hurt a lot. And you know what? He said it right. That was 2012.
He's flat out admitting it. Yeah. That's a telltale sign. Yeah. He knew, but he said, whatever. I'm just going to be me.
Want to hear how good his youth hockey team was? He played for a team called the Mid Fairfield Rangers. Okay?
On that team, we had a kid play there.
On that team was Max Pacioretty and Cam Atkinson and Jonathan Quick.
Wow.
Pretty good.
Yeah, just a little.
Pretty good.
2 out of 3 hockey East. There we go.
Really good.
So that's what we think of the Kings. We'll see. They are a mystery, and obviously Vegas Golden Knights, we both think will bounce back. As both Pierre said and the coach said, they will need to find some scoring, but they're confident they've got some guys that can do that. So we'll see what happens. But on that note, let me tell you about Manta Sleep, because I know Coach Cassidy's going to need a little of that after these days coming up where it's nonstop calls and meetings and training camp, and people don't realize how busy these coaches are at this time. They go right into it, and it's nonstop, and it goes right through into the season. So I hope that Coach Cassidy and every other coach out there tries Manta Sleep, because they have the only mask designed and optimized for the deepest possible sleep in any environment. 100% blackout for deeper sleep, infinitely adjustable for personalized fit, and absolute comfort. Visit mantasleep.ca and use the code SICKET. That's SICKET, SICKET, for 10% off. All right, let's get over to our Q&A. What do we got here? John Smith, aloha. With the logjam in East, is it possible that Buffalo just doesn't get over the hump into the playoffs? I don't just mean this year. They just never got that franchise forward after Eichel. John, great observation, and completely agree. I think it's going to be, there's a lot of those teams. Pierre and I have referenced this a lot. You guys have in the chat room there that are in that mix to kind of break through for a playoff spot. But not everyone's going to do it, and they could be that team. And if they do, if it is that team, as Pierre said, there's going to be a lot of changes again.
So here's what encourages me about Buffalo. I'll give you the positive side first. Lindy Ruff's the coach there. Mm-hmm. And he's an amazingly popular guy in Buffalo, and I think that does carry weight with the players in Buffalo because it's a small community, and they're not going to be able to take pot shots at the coach because he's an iconic figure in their community. I'm telling you right now. So that's number one. Number two, he knows what his team is going to be. He's not going to mess around in training camp. Let's experiment here. He's going to pick his top 23 guys and say, that's my team. Not messing around. You other guys go to Rochester. You're somebody else's problem. Number three, and I truly believe this, he will make their defense better because he's not going to allow them what they've been doing. And that circling around, overhandling the puck. I've coached against them. I've watched him coach. I've broadcast tons of his games. You get the puck playing for him, you better move it. And if you don't, you're not going to play. And that's you, Rasmus Dahlin. That's you, Matthias Samuelsson. That's you, Jacob Bryson. It's all those guys. Bowen Byram, all those guys. You get the puck, you better move it. Yeah. And I think Buffalo will be better. Now, my only question mark is they need insulation for Tage Thompson. And I don't know where
that's a great point. That's great.
And
just further on Ruff there, too, agree with everything you said, Pierre. And I think the fact that he's been there before, his connection to that franchise, there is a pride factor inside him for that franchise that he can translate back into the lineup that maybe has been missing,
No, That's 100% true. The one thing I can tell you, like I've been going to Buffalo, New York a long time. You know, I played a college hockey game there in 1979. I played a college football game there in 1979.
Oh, wow.
I go back a long way, okay?
Connections.
And I'll just tell you that Buffalo, New York is a proud community. And
I love
the fans are electrifying, and they care, and they deserve better. And this is not a shot at ownership, because the Pagulas have tried so hard.
They have.
They have tried everything. They're not sitting on their wallets. They're trying everything. I think they finally got it right, though, with the coach. I do. I think and that's not a knock on Donnie Granato either. I think in that market, you got to have a certain type of coach.
Yep.
You know, it's got to be
the market.
A guy from the community, guy that can talk like us, that can walk into a pub like us. You know what I mean? It's just Lindy's that guy.
Yep. The vibe is there for sure. All right, next question. State of survival. Which teams are sleeper teams this season? I think Caps, Isles, and Canadians could spoil, but you also have Ottawa, Buffalo that may take their next steps, and Seattle might shine. I think Wright is ready. Well, state of survival. You're all over the place there, but I agree with you. You pointed out some very good teams that could be in that mix as a sleeper team. We discussed Seattle yesterday. As Rob Simpson said, he thinks at best they're a bubble team. I'm interested about Washington, what he says there, Pierre, because Washington quietly did some interesting things in the offseason.
But they got to get below the cap, so they're going to have to move some stuff out of there.
I know, but they've got some young players, too, that are filtering in. One of them you saw plenty of at Boston College.
Yeah.
Mr. Leonard.
Well, he won't be there this year, but.
Yeah, I know, but they've got other guys coming up. They could be a scrappy team, Pierre. Remember last year, there were a lot of times when you looked at a game and you said, they got no chance, and they won. And they're one of those teams, I feel like, I don't think they're making the playoffs, but they could be aggravating. That's the way I look at it.
Well, here's how I look at it. I think they could battle for the last playoff spot in the East. Hershey Bears have won the last 2 Calder Cups. That's their farm team. They've got players coming out of there. And, you know, what they need more than anything else, they need Pierre-Luc Dubois to be a legitimate top 2 centerman and probably a top 1 centerman. You don't have Nicky Backstrom, you know, Kuznetsov has moved on. You need to get production from Pierre-Luc Dubois. And if you do, and Tommy Wilson can get back on his game, you got a shot. I think they'll be better. Surprise team for state of survival, I think Anaheim. I'm going to stay with it. I know he's our buddy, Coach Cronin, but I think Anaheim is way better than people are letting on. I think they're going to be extremely improved. Last year, Anaheim had 59 points in the standings, Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying they can get to 98 because that's what you got to get in the West to kind of get in, but I think they can get to 87. That'd be a significant improvement.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I think one of the more improved teams.
If I'm going to pick, so when I say a real sleeper team, I'm kind of taking Pierre. I'm looking in the East right now. I'm not going to say the Red Wings, the Sabres, and the Senators are in there because everyone's talking about them. So nobody's sleeping on them. We're all talking about them. I'm going to look at the Canadians. If there's a sleeper team in the East, I'm going to look at the Montreal Canadiens to be that team. I'm not guaranteeing they make the playoffs, but that to me would be the definition of a sleeper team is if they were able to be there at the end and pushing for a wild card and maybe sneak in, that would be a sleeper team to me. And again, I totally echo your thoughts on the Anaheim Ducks in the West.
So I would agree on Montreal, but I'm going to say another team in the East because they're in a different division, the New Jersey Devils.
Yes, but Pierre, to be honest, everybody's pretty hyped on them right now.
But they better be, but I'm just saying last year they were no good.
No, they were horrible.
They were no good, okay?
Yeah.
Now,
and by the way, we're getting Fitz on when we tee up the Devils when we get to the East. That's already set up.
You know what? Fitch would be great, but maybe we should talk to the new coach.
Ooh, yeah. Wouldn't mind that.
I'd like to see what he thinks about his group. You know, we just had Bruce Cassidy on, who's won a Stanley.
Yeah. Sheldon Keefe would be interesting. Yeah, that would be a great guest. I'll work on that.
I think that, we'll bug Fitz later on in the season, but I think Sheldon should come on to talk about, what's different between his team in Toronto. I know he'll say Austin Matthews, but you know what? I think he's got a lot of young assets there in New Jersey.
Yeah.
I like a lot of them.
And one thing too, Pierre, that we got to move on to more questions here, but quickly that you bring him up, I want to just point out, I did a story with Fitz just about his off season recently. And one of the things he brought up when I asked him about, why Sheldon Keefe, one of the reasons he brought up was the heartbreak he has consistently experienced, losing to the Bruins in Game 7 and just losing in the second round and just constantly suffering tough losses in one of the hardest hockey markets in the world. And he's like, that strength, that really makes you tough. That seasons you. And that's something that I think my team can use, that he can translate to them in the dressing room and on the ice. So I thought that was an interesting thing there, how he thinks losing can turn into a strength for Sheldon Keefe when he starts his coaching.
I like thinking outside of the box. I like that. There's nothing wrong with it. So good on Tommy for doing that. I think Sheldon needs to win a playoff round.
Yep.
I know he won one last year, not this past year, the year before.
Yeah.
But he needs to in Jersey.
I think he needs to win too.
He does. Anything less than the playoffs in Jersey this year is a disaster.
Oh, yeah. There's going to be,
Anything less than the playoffs is a disaster there.
Yeah. As long as they're healthy, they have no excuse.
Yeah, that's fair. That's the caveat. So here's what I want to propose to you. If you look at that division, okay, the Metro, you think Rangers are getting in, right?
Yes.
I would agree. I think the Rangers are getting in. Do you think Carolina's getting in?
No.
Okay, so they're going to be out. Who's replacing them?
Top of my head, let's see.
You're probably thinking Jersey.
Jersey. Yeah, Jersey goes in to replace them right there.
I think 5 teams are going to make it from the Atlantic.
Right.
So
that's 3. So I got the Rangers, the Devils, and the Penguins making it.
So you have the Penguins making it.
Yep.
Okay, I don't.
Okay. So who do you have to replace them?
Good question.
The Caps?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So see, there we go to our question now there. Pierre is on there. Pierre likes that. All right. I like that. It's a bold pick, but it does make sense to me.
I just think Spencer,
he's great.
I will tell you this straight up.
Yep.
I was concerned at the start of last year watching Spencer Carberry and his team in Washington. I was.
Mm-hmm.
They looked lost. They did. I was really concerned. And I think we talk about young coaches.
Yep.
He found a way to reel it in. And he did.
He was one of the most underrated coaching stories of the year, Pierre. If you
He
think
did.
about it.
I'm telling you, Jimmy.
How many times did we come on the following day after a game when we thought they were going to lose that game and be like, wow, how'd they do that? That's him. That's him.
Him and his staff. He and his staff did a very good job. But I would tell you that I think he'll be better in his second year. They're very organized. Washington's an organized team now.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting. I think they could squeak in. I don't think – I could be wrong. The only reason that 4 teams made it from the Metro last year is because Dylan Larkin got hurt. And I told you at the beginning, I thought 5 teams from the Atlantic would be in.
Yep.
If Detroit doesn't fold the tent, 5 teams do make it.
Mm-hmm.
Because they melted down without Larkin, 4-4. This year, I think it's pronounced. It's 5-3.
Yep. I'm with you on that. All right. Next question. Vincent Yoel. What's up, Vin? Hello, gentlemen. My son, Jedi, says, thanks for the advice. By the way, I love his name. Question. After drafting a player, how long does a team own the player's rights before they can sign wherever they want?
Okay. It's a fair question. So if you're a junior player, it's 3 years. If you're a college player, it's 4. If you're European, it's longer. So there's different categories.
Mm-hmm. Pierre, there's some – I felt like earlier in the summer – I'll have to go back and research it. We'll get back to tomorrow. But wasn't there some kind of fuss earlier in the summer about agents wanting to change some of that?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Because what's happening is what some guys, the college guys, are using it as a weapon. Jimmy Vesey's an example. Jimmy Vesey was drafted by Nashville, and he said, you know what, I'm going to go back to Harvard for another year, and I'll become a free agent. So he went to the New York Rangers. That's just one example. There are other guys doing it too. Look at Snuggerud. Snuggerud didn't sign in St. Louis this year. He went back to Minnesota. Now, that could be for unfinished business, but the college guys and their agents use that as a tool to try to get more money out of the teams or get the teams to speed the contract up on entry level.
All right. Perfect. By the way, some news breaking in the last hour while we've been talking. Chris Johnson reporting that the Toronto Maple Leafs have signed Yanni Hakanpää to a 1-year deal worth $1.47 million. A lot of people are saying that was coming.
Yeah, but so my only question on Hakanpää, he by the way, he's useful for that team especially. You just wonder about his health.
That's what I was going to say, Pierre.
I don't know.
Poor guy.
They have doctors that are telling him it's a good sign and get him up. You don't know that. He's had so many lower body injuries.
That's why I'm surprised it went right to the signing, not a PTO. That was interesting.
I think they probably just said, you know what, it's a digestible number. We'll just do it.
Okay. And of course, they're saying Pacioretty is going to be in as a PTO.
Toronto. How long ago did I tell you?
And by the way, I was going to get to that. Pierre said that months ago, probably right after the draft. I want to say, we'll go back and find it, but it was right after the draft that Pierre was predicting Pacioretty to Toronto, and here we are, and that's what's going to happen. I hope, speaking of health, that he can stay healthy as well and find his game again. All right, next question. Joe Segreto. Leafs only have $400K in cap space now. How do they fit Patches and Hakanpää, who is out? Well, they're going to have to make another move.
Yeah, it's kind of like where Washington is. It's where Vegas is. There are a lot of teams are going to have to make some moves. Don't panic. They got a long time to go. Training camp hasn't even opened yet.
Yeah.
They've got, another 30 days probably before they have to. I haven't looked at the calendar, but it's close to 30. So don't worry. They'll get it worked out, Joe.
And speaking of the team I covered for so long, the Bruins too, if they sign Swayman, and they likely will have to do the same thing, they'll be able to do it. By the way, just sidetracking there. No, nobody said anything. I just have a weird feeling we might hear something on that tomorrow, Pierre. Some big news. That's all. That's just my gut. I'm just saying this. The Bruins are notorious.
Get to the next question.
Into the golf tournament. Watch out tomorrow, golf tournament. Next question. Enter tap. Jimmy, how do you compare Cassidy and Montgomery as coaches? And also, how they deal with the media? Well, I'll take the second question first. They're both great with the media, but Bruce, I think, to a fault when he was in Boston, I do know that sometimes it might have rubbed people above him a little the wrong way, he's just blunt. He's just so honest about everything. And that's just who he is. That's how he's made, and he's never going to change. So you take that with him, and you look at how good a coach he is, and you kind of look the other way when it comes to that. Jim Montgomery, though, is very more controlled. He knows exactly what he needs to say. He knows he's in, what's the word I'm looking for? He's in sync with management no matter what. And you're not going to get many slip-ups with him. Maybe off the record, he's going to tell you a thing, but when the mic's on, he's very controlled, and the message is already planned. That's how I'll put that. And as for coaching style, I think they're similar in ways that they both want to attack. I do think that one thing I would say, Bruce, so far, and this is just from what I've known covering both coaches. I've only coached Jim now for 2 years, covered Jim for 2 years. I think Bruce adjusts a little better in game to game. I think Jim's better. That's the way I'd put it. So that's my take.
Fair. As you said, I'm not going to swing too far different than that. It's very good.
All right. Next question. Postnet on 1:30. Sorry I missed the beginning. How would you rate Vegas among the West teams to compete for the season and the Stanley Cup? I think they're contenders. They're right in the mix.
They're a legitimate contender. They're a playoff team. Whether they can be a home ice team is another story. But, no, they're a good team. They're going to be right up near the top.
All right. I think we're on our final question. Then we got to roll. What do we got? We're on the road. Is Scotty Bowman coming on and giving his take on the upcoming season?
I spoke to Scotty today for a long period of time. He will be on at some point. We're going to wait. Obviously, we want training camps to start. For those of you that live in the Buffalo area, there's a rookie tournament starting this weekend. Our good friend Kevin Ball DuPont's on his way there. I texted with him today, and Scotty will be at the games as well in Buffalo. So if you're there and you see Scotty in the stands, go say hello. He loves to talk hockey, but he will definitely be on the eye test.
That's a great practice facility too, where they hold those games. Pierre, I love it up there. Great ice. Great ice.
Buffalo's great, man. I'm telling you.
We might have to make a road trip there and do an eye test in Buffalo this year. We'll look into that.
That would be good.
I wouldn't mind that at all. Let's make it happen. All right. We want to thank the Vegas Golden Knights for helping us last minute to get that interview with head coach Bruce Cassidy, and thank Butch himself as well. Thanks to our producer Shane. Thanks to you and the viewers and listeners section, and for your questions. As always, we love them, enjoy answering them. And thanks to you, Pierre. And again, for all those affected by September 11th, 2001, we are thinking of you today and every day. This has been the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.